Hi everyone, I'm Paige Abbott and I'm a registered psychologist in the province of Alberta. I thought I would do this video, which is probably a little bit more personal, but it definitely ties into addiction recovery and mental health, which is the work that I do every day. And what I wanted to talk about was that unfortunately about a month and a half ago, kind of mid-April-ish, I became a COVID statistic. So I contracted COVID. No clue where, felt I was adhering to all of the regulations and the guidelines, but nevertheless I got it. At first I thought I just had a really stuffy nose and a bad cold, but within a couple of days my symptoms really started to progress and escalate. And for me, I was kind of in a moderate case, that it didn't result in hospitalization or anything too severe, thank goodness. But I did really struggle with functioning. My life tasks were really reduced to almost just the bare minimum for at least a couple of weeks. And I started to slowly build up from that point. Now, about 6 or 7 weeks later, where we sit, feeling closer to normal for sure, but there's still a little bit of healing and recovery to come. The reason that I bring this forward is that I have been reflecting on kind of the personal as well as what I think might be the lessons for other people who have a serious illness. And this can be COVID, it can be other physical illnesses, and it can also be mental health issues. That what I wanted to share was some of the lessons that I kind of observed and took away that I think would be really helpful for people's mental health in general. I guess the first lesson and the first thing that I really noticed was the power and the impact of support. I hear this from clients all the time. I talk about it with clients all the time. I know it's important. I'm sure you know it's important too. But I don't think we often really realize just how important connection is until we're at these really vulnerable points in our lives. And what I personally found was that I didn't need to have like 50 or 100 people around who were my supports, but it was all about the quality and just having those safe places to land, whether that was for logistical support or more so like the emotional support along the way, were just so helpful and so impactful. People who are there to support you and care about you unconditionally, who don't care what health state you're in, who don't really care what kind of BS you're spouting at the time, that they're there to listen, they're there to challenge gently if need be, and they are there as that support through thick and thin. I really hope that those of you watching are working on cultivating that support network for yourself and really starting to look at the people around you and look at who offers that quality, unconditional support in relationship and maybe who doesn't, and reevaluating, is it time to make some changes with some of your boundaries and some of your relationships to try to err more in that direction of quality and that unconditional support. The second lesson that I personally took away from this experience is that the things you think matter when you're fairly healthy, meaning your body is well, don't actually seem that important when you're not well. So I think it's really easy for a lot of people, myself included, to just get caught up in kind of the busyness of life and to focus on some of those external things, stresses in life and maybe with work, or perhaps it's even with things like your physical self, body, image, appearance, that kind of thing, that I know from the thousands of hours of counseling I've done over the years that these things are very impactful for people, and I think they are for all human beings. And I found it quite interesting how your priorities really do get kind of redefined when you're struggling. And I think there's some valuable lessons in that for all of us, that when you're struggling, what matters the most is self-care, relationships, and connection. And that's pretty much it. Everything else kind of takes a back seat because you recognize it's almost irrelevant at those moments. It's nice to be able to focus on things beyond self-care and connection when we're well. However, I think we really need to keep track and keep connection with those things and make those our ongoing priorities, no matter what state of health we happen to be in. And that leads me to the third lesson that I took away, was the powerful healing value of rest and slowing down. And I've really appreciated throughout this last year of the COVID pandemic seeing lots more messages from people about how important it is to slow down. And I've even seen messages similar to my second lesson that I just shared about how, the things that we get caught up in, that it's okay to slow down or pull back. That this go kind of rat race mentality that so many people have been caught in can be changed and really needs to change. So aiming for quality of life rather than quantity of busyness and things and stuff. And what do I mean by rest? I don't mean necessarily naps and sleep, although when you're physically unwell, you do need a lot of that. But just rest in terms of being easier on oneself, having maybe different boundaries with what you say yes and what you say no to. Just taking care of yourself in a kind of slower, gentler, more thoughtful way, rather than just doing the bare necessity. So taking time to nourish yourself with thoughtfully prepared food that you mindfully consume, hydrating yourself, rest, which could be naps, it could be breaks, it could be, taking a half hour or a couple of hours here and there to do something that you enjoy. Getting adequate sleep at night, having a routine, having structure, and building in those things and making those the mainstay of your life and your priorities, rather than all the other shoulds and expectations that we get caught up in. What else did I take away from this? Those are definitely the top three for me. I think also the last lesson that I'd want to convey is just this all really hit home for me, the importance of mental health. That if our mental health is poor, it is going to dramatically impact our ability to navigate physical health conditions. So having that regular investment in our mental health, whether that's through professional supports like therapy or more the self-care, kind of self-management things that we can all do, processing feelings, talking to supports, having fun exercise, looking after our body, doing the kind of restful things that I mentioned before, having time in nature, around trees, around water, in landscapes that are soothing for you, connecting with ourselves, maybe having some thought about existential questions like meaning and purpose and life and death, and really just trying to embrace those core parts of humanity that as we strengthen and develop those, may not necessarily change what kind of cards are dealt to people physically, but it can definitely help you navigate that in a very different way. Because I've seen people, when they become physically unwell, without that foundation of mental health, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of angst, there's a lot of resentment, there's a lot of stress, a lot of fighting, and that adds extra stress to the system, which makes the physical recuperation and healing and coping that much harder. So I'm so grateful. It was a really good reevaluation period for me too, to look at am I living kind of the authentic, congruent life that I would like to? And I'm really happy to report that I'm really happy with where things are at in my life, and that really helped to carry me through a pretty difficult time in my physical health and in my life in general. And I really hope that all of you will continue to stay safe and look after yourselves physically, but also prioritize your mental health, prioritize yourself, prioritize boundaries, because more than anything, you're worth it and you deserve that. Thanks so much for listening and watching. I look forward to seeing where future videos will take me. I don't have any specific topics in mind at this point, so I'm open to suggestions, both from all of you out there and also from the clients that I see every day, and just all of the universal energies that are floating around. So I'll be in touch when I'm back in touch with new inspiration and a new video for everybody. Take care. Bye for now.